Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we have an interesting story coming out of Netflix, and that is that they have purchased the rights from Paramount to make a Beverly Hills Cop 4 with the option for a sequel. Now, this isn't necessarily out of the blue. Eddie Murphy has stated in the past that he wanted to make Beverly Hills Cop 4 after his Coming to America sequel, which is set to premiere next year. So it's not necessarily out of the realm of possibility. And then on top of that, the fact that he just did Dolomite Is My Name with Netflix, which is getting very positive reviews. I will probably be watching that in the near future, and I'll probably do a review video on it. But this isn't necessarily surprising. The only thing that I'm kind of concerned about is that this is kind of, Eddie Murphy had a very low dip in his career going through the late 90s and the 2000s. He had a lot of flops. He had stuff like Pluto Nash. He had stuff like Haunted Mansion and things like that. Dr. Dolittle was kind of a bright spot in there, the remake they did of that, which they're remaking again. But, there wasn't a lot of really good stuff that he was doing in that time frame. And then he just kind of fell off the map until we started seeing stuff that was popping up like Dolomite. So this is kind of his return to form, I think. I really like the idea of him in Dolomite. I thought the trailer was amazing. Again, I plan on watching it soon. But I thought that was a really good fit in the sense that Eddie Murphy was able to kind of go back to his roots. Now, I am kind of concerned with Coming to America 2, or as it's being called, Coming to the number 2 America. Because, again, it's kind of the idea of a belated sequel or a delayed sequel. The original film came out in the 80s. This is going to be, 30 years later at this point. So it's kind of odd just to see it. And the other thing is, I don't know if you have that much. Coming to America was a funny movie. It was a good movie. I like it. Eddie Murphy's really good in it, as well as the supporting cast. James Earl Jones does a great job in that film as well. And it's not. The thing is, I just don't know if it's one of those things that you can make a sequel to and get people to come in and watch it. And the other thing is, there's a lot of problems in general with making comedy sequels, because a lot of the times they don't work because they just try to reuse the same jokes from the first film, or this and that. And again, we're not 100% sure what Coming to America is going to be rated. The original one was rated R for obvious reasons. So I don't know. It seems kind of interesting to me. And then you jump to this. Now, Beverly Hills Cop is probably, I think, Eddie Murphy's most successful franchise that he's ever been in. The first 2 films were big box office successes. The third one, I believe, just made its money back, basically, and kind of pedestrian. A lot of people don't really like the third one. And I think that's why that franchise kind of tapered off. It ended there because people realized that the money was starting to dry up. Like, they had a couple big hits, and now this one's kind of so all right, we'll just kind of let this go out to pasture. In addition to the fact Eddie Murphy wanted to go do other things. So to come back to that, I feel like is going to be really strange. Again, because we've already had 3 movies in this franchise. We've kind of left things off. And I'm aware that Eddie Murphy kind of wants to come back to the actual Foley character, but this feels more like dredging up 80s nostalgia to kind of revitalize his career. Now, again, I don't dump Dolomite into that just because it's an original property in terms of, it's not a sequel to anything. It's not linked into a franchise. It's a biopic about Rudy Ray Moore, and Eddie Murphy is playing him. And I think Eddie Murphy should experiment more with more original properties rather than go back and dredge up his old films, because not just for the fact that maybe these new films might not be that good, but the fact that I think Eddie Murphy is a really funny guy when he's doing his rated R comedy. And again, they've also been discussing the fact that he's going to be returning to stand up, which I'm very interested in. And apparently, there's talks right now that he might be doing some stand up specials for Netflix. Again, much like Dave Chappelle and some other and Bill Burr. So I'd be very interested to see that, because I liked Eddie Murphy's stand up in the 80s. I thought he was hilarious. So, I think he should go back and start doing some stuff like that, as opposed to kind of dredging up his old franchises. And again, like I said, I don't necessarily think this might be for the money. This might be just, he realizes that the iron is kind of hot right now because Hollywood is dredging up so many 80s franchises. A lot of them are failing, but they're dredging them up. And he's trying to, get in on that, which again, I don't fault him for because, he's those were his glory days, basically. But I think that he should focus more on original content. I think that Beverly Hills Cop 4 is not necessarily a good route to take. Now, again, we haven't seen anything on the film. We don't know who is signed aside from Eddie Murphy. So I haven't seen the product, so I can't judge the product for what it is. But just from what it sounds like, and in addition to the fact they also picked up the rights for a sequel, if this does well, they're going to do a 5. So it's like, okay, yeah, I'm not really into that. Like maybe if you did one where you sent Axel Foley and it was the last hurrah, and then he rides off into the sunset, and that's it. I'm not opposed to those types of movies. Rambo: Last Blood is kind of like that in a sense. Where at the end he rides off into the sunset. That's the idea. And I hope they don't do another one past that because I think that one kind of capped things off as it should have. But, if you want to give that character a last hurrah, then again, that's fine. But the thing is that they want to try and do soft reboots with a lot of these franchises, like what they wanted to do with Terminator Dark Fate, and it doesn't work because you're continuing a franchise that either has faded into not necessarily obscurity, but it has faded from the public eye enough where you're not going to be able to get the same numbers that you once got for it. Or it has such lackluster films that preceded it that there's no saving it. And again, this seems to be a reoccurring thing with 80s cinema that's coming up today. But I'm not opposed to this idea. I'm just kind of curious what they're going to wind up doing in terms of the execution. But I want to know what you think. Would you be excited to see a continuation of the Beverly Hills Cop series? With Eddie Murphy coming back and playing Axel Foley, as opposed to something like a reboot, or I think they made a television show actually at one point too. But I want to know what you think. Put your thoughts in the comments below. Again, I'd like to know what you're thinking. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?